Hello again, this is Charlie Belfontaine, and you're listening to the Homebuyers Hour on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. And in the studio with me today, I got Patrick Loftus of Loftus Law. But first, I want to hear from Joey Matthews. Joey, tell us a little bit about you and give us a synopsis. What happened? We just had primaries, and I know nothing's complete, but what do you foresee with like mortgage stuff happening in the future?
Well, I mean, obviously elections matter. I know obviously the Dow is down significantly right now, but that's going to happen anytime there's an election because we don't know what's going to happen with if we have a unified government, if we have a divided government, how that's going to affect the market. And stocks and bonds move the same way. So yeah, we'll see some volatility in the next couple of days. I don't think it's going to be anything staggering like what we saw when Trump won in 2016. We saw rates like skyrocket overnight, like 3.25%. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean that's really the biggest thing on the horizon. We have CPI numbers coming in soon. I cannot recall exactly when. I think it's coming in next week. So CPI is obviously it's the consumer price index. That's how we are measuring inflation. And I'm expecting to see it be a little bit softer than it's been in the last few months. So that could be good for us.
And Patrick and I are both keeping our fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Which is good, right? And there was a whole intent for raising the rates, slow everything down, and keep it going. Patrick, tell us a little bit about you, your company, please.
Yes, I am Patrick Loftus. My company is Loftus Law. I'm a real estate lawyer, so if you are buying a house, or especially if you're selling a house, you would hire me to make sure that everything goes smoothly and you don't get taken advantage of. If you want to reach out to me, please do. My number is 773-632-8330.
Yay. And we were talking, today we don't have a real estate agent on the show with us. And sometimes that's a good thing. It's good to talk about what you two are experts in, which is obviously law and mortgages, and we were having some discussions before we got on the air about condos and a lot of the headaches that happen in a real estate transaction with condominiums and the different things that the laws that are involved with it, the mortgages that are involved with it, even the different types of inspections that we do. I think this would be a good subject to take up the entire hour. And one of the things, Patrick, we were talking about is condo docs. If I remember right, you said laws have changed.
Well, where do I start? So, condominium. Here in Chicago and in the surrounding areas, we have a lot of condos. And so it is something that any real estate professional would be well advised to educate themselves as to what are the differences and nuances insofar as owning, buying, selling, and living in a condo are. Now, a condominium it's a thing that is a legally made up concept. So, if you grew up in a single family detached house, it's a house on a piece of land. It's pretty simple. You're responsible for maintaining the house. The piece of land is yours. Whoever's on that deed. Now, a condominium is created when something called a condominium declaration is recorded at the recorder of deeds.
Okay.
So essentially, you take and boy, can I just get the whole 53 and a half minutes and just go on a strict rant?
I told you it would be more than 20. I love it.
I'll shut up.
So a condo, in the legal sense, is different than a condo in like the colloquial sense. So when people think
I don't even know what colloquial means.
Well, so colloquial would be like...
I couldn't even pronounce it right.
I have a hard time.
Yeah.
Meaning how people commonly consider it. So they think condo, it's essentially an apartment building, except that the people own the individual units rather than renting them.
And I hear that in my friends in New York. They refer to what we call condos, they refer to them as apartments. And what we refer to as apartments is more of a rental unit as opposed to an ownership unit. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it?
It is.
So when I think about a condo, because I am a lawyer and a real estate lawyer specifically, I think about this legal entity that's created through the recording of this document. Now, this document called the declaration, sometimes something you would call a townhome is a condo, even though it doesn't look like what you picture in your mind as a condo. Because all of that condominium really means legally is that you've recorded this thing called a declaration. A declaration is what I will describe as essentially the constitution that governs your relationship with the other unit owners in the condominium. It tells you what the rules are, establishes the board, which is busy or is tasked with the responsibility of running and maintaining the condo. It's whenever you're buying a condo, you're essentially, in addition to buying a place to live, you're investing in a small business, because each of those unit owners is going to be responsible for some portion of the expenses necessary for maintenance. So whether it's snow removal, whether it is replacing a roof, the first would be an operating expense. The second would generally be a capital expenditure.
And how do they divide that up? Like, who gets what percentage? Is everybody equal?
So more or less what they do is they take the entirety of the square footage. So if it's 100,000 square feet and you own, if the building is in total 100,000 square feet, if you own 1,000 square feet, you get 1%. Okay, just to make the math easy. So whatever that budget is that gets established, you're responsible for 1% of that budget, and that's how it gets divided up. If it's a $100,000 budget that year, you're going to have to pay in $1,000, and you divide it up 12 ways because that just makes it easier for people to budget. A month seems to be the measure of time that we budget most bills.
I heard sometimes that if you pay the monthly fees, or you pay your special assessment, all in one payment, that they do a little bit cheaper. And then if you pay by month, is that legal?
That would not be a way to set that up. So I would differentiate between the regular monthly assessment. So that is developed. The regular monthly assessment comes from the annual budget. Yeah. So the budget is like any other budget. It tells us how much we're expecting to spend on each of the things that we have to pay for in order to maintain this small business. Insurance, for management, there's a whole list of things. And depending on the building, it gets more extensive, this list, the bigger the building. If you've got a doorman, that becomes part of the budget, a pool, any of these sorts of things.
Elevators, I know, get stupidly expensive.
No doubt they do. Now, that is not something that even legally you could discount for a unit owner, because you're essentially shorting the business the investment that is necessary to maintain the budget. And the Condo Act says you can't do that, more or less. I'm sure we could. Other lawyers would probably debate me on the nuance of it, but we're not here to do that today. Now, I think what you're referencing is the payment of a special assessment and whether you're going to pay it all up front or finance it over time. So a special assessment would happen if there is, let's just say, an unexpected expense. Either there's some sort of casualty, roof blows off, maybe there's not insurance for it, or there is some unexpected expense that wasn't planned for through the funding of the reserves. The unit owners will have to come up with that money to make sure that that expense gets paid for. It can get pricey. And let's say that you get nailed with a $5,000 special assessment. If you don't have that cash on hand, you might want to spread that payment over time, in which case you would end up paying some interest, because generally speaking, money's not free.
It's a loan. Your
association doesn't it's not really formed to make interest-free loans to the unit owners. That would be sort of outside of the scope.
Does it have to be an emergency situation for a special assessment?
Not necessarily, but that's what comes to mind. So it's going to be something either unexpected, or it could be that it could be that the association was mismanaged. You hate to think of a situation, but it happens. Let's say that the one of the board members was embezzling. It doesn't happen often, but I have seen it.
Yeah.
Those are very unfortunate circumstances. Yeah, but it's usually, if it were expected, it would be part of the budget.
Fair enough. One other thing too about that is, like, when I was living in a condo, they wanted to give everybody a special assessment of.
I don't think they were giving you anything with the special assessment.
I stand corrected.
That is a taking.
That's a taking, right? But they gave, or everyone had a special assessment that we had to kick in for this stuff, and part of the thing was the prices in the reserve study ended up going up. And they wanted to make sure that they had enough money in the reserve study so when it came time for the roof to be replaced and everything else to be replaced, that it wouldn't be a big shocker. My beef was I was there for 2 years. And, maybe I should be paying an extra percentage for that 2 years that I was there or 3 years that I was there. But it was kind of a hard stomach to buy, because doesn't the person who, when the special assessment's there, is that the owner of who's responsible for that special assessment, or is the new buyer assume that the new buyer is going to assume the special assessment?
Mm. That is a hot question that will come up whenever you have that situation arise during a transaction. Personally, my experience has been that it's happening more and more now. Your question is who's going to pay for the special assessment? Yeah. In general, it's going to be the seller. Okay. The way the contract is written, the multi-board, as well as the car contract, says that if a special assessment is levied prior to contract, that's the seller's. If it is levied between contract and closing, the parties will negotiate. Now, that's a frequent topic of a modification by a buyer's lawyer. A buyer's lawyer is going to want to say, I don't want that second thing to become an issue. If a special assessment is levied anytime before closing, seller, it's yours. Now, from a seller's perspective, you're essentially giving in on that one. There's not really a compromised position to take. And to be honest, you don't hold a lot of cards as a seller, because if the buyer decides to walk over that, then your next contract is going to be after the special assessment was levied, and it's going to be yours anyway. So as a seller, that's usually the analysis I would go through. And I'd say, of course, it's up to the seller whether they want to negotiate that out of the contract, being able to negotiate the payment of the special assessment. If it's levied between contract and closing. But when the rubber hits the road, it's going to be very hard for the seller to try to play any cards that would say to the buyer, yeah, you should be on the hook for this. And additionally, it is often written into the special assessment levy by the condo board that in the event one of the unit owners sells while the special assessment is being collected, the balance is due at closing. So you'll get the paid assessment letter. Paid assessment letter is the letter from the association saying, here's the amount due from the seller in order to give you a zero balance as a buyer from day one of owning the condo. They will include the balance of whatever's left on that previously levied special assessment on the paid assessment letter. And as a seller, you're gonna have to pay it if that's what's there.
Joey, does that come into play with you when you're writing mortgages for buyers on condos?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we just want to make sure that when title is transferred, there's nothing that's going to affect our buyer's lien position. So yeah, we're looking for the paid assessment letter before we can close, or fund, I should say. But yeah, special assessments too. If we see that come in on a condo questionnaire, we're going to ask, what is a special assessment for? And especially now, since January 1st of 2022, if it is for deferred maintenance, it's going to require any unit owners to vacate the property for more than 7 days, or if it's something that is in regard to a serious physical defect that can affect the safety of the building and then therefore the tenants, then we can run into a warrantability issue. So Yeah, special assessments are incredibly important on our end.
Give me some history on that. Why, why did
Well,
that? Is that new or is that
yeah,
old or?
that's new. That's new as of January 1st, 2022. It's called a temporary guidance. However, there's no expiration date on the guidance from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and it is in response to the condo collapse in Miami that occurred late last year, in the summer of last year. So Fannie and Freddie put out letters in the fall, October, November timeframe, that said these are going to be the new rules, January 1st and beyond. And what's happened since then is a lot of condos that we've dealt with previously that were warrantable. Now we're coming into these reserve studies where we're showing they're deficient in reserves for possible deferred maintenance or for special assessments coming up, where we're no longer being able to warrant them.
What does that
So if
mean,
you see
warrant
your
them?
agent,
And forgive me
so
for the basic questions. Your expertise is not mine,
yeah,
and I'm sure if I don't know something, I'm sure someone else doesn't either, and that's all of us. So
at the end of the day, at the root of it, it just means that the loan, the loan can be sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac.
okay,
If they will not buy the loan, we cannot close it unless we go with a non-qualified mortgage product, a non-QM product. And now all those lenders are out of business, so we're kind of screwed either way.
that's funny. Wait, now what do you have to have a certain percentage in reserves or operating budgets or whatever in order to give somebody a loan?
They want to make sure that there's at least a 10% reserve
10%.
for deferred maintenance, regularly performed maintenance. 10% is our magic number, right? We want to make sure that there's enough money. However, when special assessments come around and we see what it's for, and if it's going to be an issue, we know that they don't have the money to cover it, then we can run into a warrantability issue, even if they meet that 10% guidance.
And what would be give me an example of that?
A pool that has not been maintained and is completely corroded underground and turns into a sinkhole. That would be a big issue.
And how would they know that, though?
Here.
Or how would you know that as a mortgage guy?
Not passing. So condos have to pass municipal inspections. If they are behind or they're not passing those inspections, we'll find out, and that will affect warrantability. If they're not being reissued certificates of occupancy from the municipality, we won't be able to close because we know that there's an inspection issue with the municipality.
Isn't that
So
different, though, on every
it's
community?
building code.
That's
It
in
is.
the
That's
building
why I
code.
say
Okay.
that's why. Well, building codes for different municipalities, and I mean this is all over the country, right? So if we're sticking to Chicagoland specifically, there's no such thing as a certificate of occupancy in Chicagoland. It's just a inspection.
That's
Okay.
good, because I was afraid, like, what the hell? I don't know about this.
Well, and let me correct that slightly, not to be a nudge.
I like it.
Yeah, you're right. In the city of Chicago, good luck getting your hands on a certificate of occupancy. In one of the suburbs, however, my experience is that they will issue a certificate of occupancy for a new construction unit.
But that's new construction. What I'm hearing from Joey, though, is like an annual inspection that's done by a local authority having jurisdiction? Or is that only new construction?
There's a reason that we have a building department. So if we're getting code violations being sent in, there's going to be inspections for the municipality. And if we are not having municipality issue approvals for buildings, we're going to see it.
That's interesting because, I used to work for the Village of Northbrook. I spent 30 years there and many years. And I know that we do not do re-inspections as far as the building department does on the local community. Now, when you go to Wheeling, they're going to have renter. If somebody owns a rental property, then that's done annually. In Northbrook, we did the fire safety stuff. So that was the NFPA 101. And I know that it's the IFC is what they're following now. But those were all just like sprinkler systems and egress and stuff like that. That had nothing to do, and fire spread. That had nothing to do with, like, if we take an example, Miami, with salt deteriorating the floors and stuff like that. That had nothing to do with that. And that's what's thrown me for a loop if different communities do different things.
Oh, that's definitely the case.
It is the case.
It's
Okay, good.
complex. To say the least.
Listen to that. An attorney is going to tell me
It's meant to
something's
confuse
complex.
us.
Yeah. Well, everything confuses me relatively easy. So, but can you go into more detail, Patrick? I'm curious.
Well, it's really going to depend from municipality to municipality. And if you've ever seen a map of the Chicagoland area of the various suburbs, we've got more suburbs than you can shake a stick at. I remember
278 zip codes in a 6-county area. That much I know.
Yeah, there was one day I was in Three Oaks. It was Oak Park. What was it? Oak Forest.
Oak Lawn, Oak Forest.
And yeah, all on the same day. Not that any of them are all that exciting to be in, but and maybe that's the most boring story.
Let me stop you right now, Patrick. How do people get hold of you?
Send me an email, patrick@loftus.law, or text me 773-632-8330.
And Joey, how do they get hold of you?
I forgot to give my NMLS earlier. 1330694. Joey Matthews, call or text 630-235-2405.
And my name is Charlie Belfontaine. We own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. And I also want to put a plug in for Home Inspection University, and that's HIUIL, so Home Inspection University of Illinois. That's HIUIL.com. And what we're going to, this is another one of those subjects, Patrick's, about the condo stuff. I would love to start putting together classes on this, what we're talking about on the show, and just put everything in order on what real estate agents, attorneys, mortgage, even in our profession, even the home inspector side, what should we be looking for? But I did interrupt you. You were talking more about the different zip codes and the Three Oaks. I kind of like that a little bit.
Oaks.
Please continue.
Yeah, I don't know that I had a whole lot more to kind of flesh out on that, other than to sort of make the point that every municipality is going to have their own ideas about what inspections, like you said, Northbrook, Wheeling. You go out to Elgin, they've got a rental license. I've got a rental property out there. I had to go sit through a half day. What was it? It's like a crime-free land. I don't know what it was called, but it was basically
mandatory education.
Yeah, it was like a 4-hour
yeah.
class, and I don't know why they had it like it was in July, but the AC was dialed up to about 12, and I was freezing.
Oh boy,
that's my biggest takeaway. I don't remember anything the guy talked about, but I remember being really cold the whole time.
I want to bring up condo docs then. I know me personally, I had some clients that got burned by it, and I think I overheard you saying that laws have changed recently about the condo docs. And I know that's another long subject, but delve into it, please.
So this one, I think I can be fairly succinct about it. Whenever you are selling a condo or buying one, you will the seller will need to obtain from the condo board, management company, whomever, a set of governing documents as well as disclosures. The Illinois Condominium Property Act has Section 22.1, which says what a buyer is entitled to in terms of governing docs and disclosures, so that they can engage in some due diligence. Because as we have discussed already, you can get yourself into a fairly deep money pit if you unwittingly get involved in a condo that has problems. Now, these documents, if there's a management company involved, they will typically use a website. There's a few different ones, but the two that come to mind are HomeWise Docs. That's probably the most common one, and then there's Condo Certs is the other one that I see from time to time. The cost to produce these documents can be absolutely eye-watering. And Joey, I'm sure you are. You probably love how much they charge you for the condo questionnaire that you need from the association in order to clear the condo. I mean, they can charge upwards of $400 or $500 for a set of governing documents, which are just PDFs, by the way,
right,
that they have stored on a server. At most, they have to update, to add in meeting minutes as time goes on, which they don't do.
But it is a business, you're saying, and the business is in business to make money. I'm not trying to justify for them. I know it's a lot of money, but there's a lot of other fees too.
Well, so
move in, move out, elevator coverings.
those are separate.
Those are separate.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
this is just to get copies of the condo docs as well. The disclosures, yes, they will have to complete those on a per unit sale basis. But
You mentioned HomeWise docs. What was the other
condo certs.
condo certs? I'm going to put that in our chat here. So go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So real estate lawyers and others, really anyone that has sold a condo and had to get involved with HomeWise docs, have, I think, justifiably been unhappy with essentially what is an opportunity for a condo association to rinse you as you're on your way out.
I got a little smirk on my face as you say that.
Seriously, I mean,
I felt that way when I moved out of our condo, for the few years.
100%. And you're entitled to feel that way because $400 for a set of PDFs is not fair, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, well, there's some labor involved. We've got to put together the 22.1. Listen, if
There's some mouse clicks involved. Get out of here.
Yeah, seriously, some typing and some clicking, and you might have to, run it by the board via email. It ain't $400, $500 worth of work. And if you want it anytime sooner than 21 business days, they're gonna increase the price. It's gonna be $100. And if you
$150 rush fee.
yeah, and if you don't rush it, then when you order it, the rush fee is even more. So if I find out we're closing 2 weeks earlier than we thought,
yeah.
it sounds like a scam because, well,
I'm sorry.
I don't want to get served with any kind of libel lawsuit, but I have strong feelings about this as it might seem. So you asked me about change in the condo law, and I told you this was going to be succinct, and then it turns out I was not being truthful with you. Or I was. I thought
You're
it could be, but I never am. I never am.
You're passionate about this stuff. Keep sharing.
Yeah, I love it. I love
me
it.
too.
It's literally it's just a ton of knowledge you have. So it's a good problem.
So the new law, which comes into effect January 1, they are capped at charging $300 for this set of condo docs, and they can only charge you an additional $100 for the rush fee. So it still is exorbitant, and there's a provision in there for incremental increases as the cost of living goes up, and fine. That means they don't have to keep updating this. It sort of updates itself.
And there's always a compromise when you're writing or changing these laws. So, at least it's somewhere. Nobody's 100% happy.
There's someone out there somewhere fuming at all these harsh criticisms that I have for HomeWise and Condo Search, saying, you have no idea what you're talking about. Do you know what it takes and what's entailed in maintaining these documents and these databases? And I would sit there and I'd go, my
for the radio, he
expression-
stuck his tongue out and gave him a raspberry.
Yeah.
All right.
And by the way, if you're on YouTube, smash the like button, click subscribe, enable notifications. I'm told you're supposed to say that.
True. But that's those laws have changed now. HomeWise, you and I had a couple of conversations in the past about getting cost estimates and such. Is this the same company to get cost estimates on?
I don't think so. I think we're talking about two different things. This is HomeWise Docs is the one I'm talking about. HomeWiseDocs.com.
Got you.
Don't make me give them a plug. That is the opposite of what I want to do for these folks.
I'm sorry about that. No, there's when we were talking about getting cost estimates, and I'm not trying to change the subject. I want to stick on the condo docs in there, but there's a website that I use called HomeWise, spelled HomeWyse.com. And they keep a pretty good up to date. And when you were telling me one time that you were not a big fan of using that particular business, and it's like, wait a minute, I love that business. So that would have been a good. I wanted to see if we were going to get into a debate on it, but obviously it's two different businesses.
Oh, that's interesting. I just wrote that down because that will be something that I will find useful myself, because it's not always helpful to Google what's it going to cost to replace a furnace. The Google results, not great. like you said, people are in business to make money, and the folks who are selling furnaces have figured out they figured out enough about the Google magic formula to get their stuff to the top, and so it can be a bit of a rabbit hole trying to search anything. And this is totally off topic, but one thing I like to do when I'm trying to search anything is search the thing you're going to search, but then cite Reddit.com, because then Google will search Reddit and you actually get some way better results for your searching. So that is a free tip from me, unrelated to real estate, unrelated to law. But ever since I found that out about 2-3 months ago, it has been a game changer as far as my web searching goes.
Maybe I need to remember that for other things when I want to go after a specific site. I would.
The results are Reddit.com.
You're giving another plug.
That's our website. If I got paid for the amount of time I spend on Reddit, I wouldn't have to sit here because I'd be swimming in money. It's basically just a giant message board. But what its own search function is garbage.
Yeah.
And Google's, of course, is
phenomenal.
One of the best.
Yeah.
But because people have secret sauced it with their SEO, the results have gotten worse over time, in my experience. But when you combine Google's expertise at searching as well as Reddit's sort of organic, more or less results, it's much better. And I'm sure they'll figure out how to screw that up too, and then we'll have to figure out another way around, people trying to make money off of us. But anyways.
But going on to that though, and I do want to get back to the condo docs. I mean, anybody could post on Reddit, and how do you verify what you're reading is actually accurate or not accurate, other than other people coming back and saying, the distinguished gentleman from Wilmette, and trust me, when somebody calls you a distinguished gentleman, they're not being nice.
No.
All right, and when they do that sort of stuff, they come back with, he doesn't really know what he's talking about, and that's your only defense.
It's a good point, and what I'll say is, if someone's talking nonsense, usually there'll be a pretty robust debate about whatever that nonsense they were talking is.
Okay.
But it's you can't just read the first result and be like, well, that's sorted.
I found an answer.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit of reading, but it'll be much better than the first 3 pages of Google, which are all lists of where to buy, this, that, or the other thing, and that it's all affiliate links that they're just trying to send you someplace that they get a commission for. And
okay.
Again, if you're in business to make money, by all means. But when I'm trying to get info, I gotta find it from someone who's not necessarily got a financial stake in it.
So, which is good, and info's the big deal. What sort of info are you and Joey looking for in these condo docs? What do you need to see?
Okay, so when I'm looking at condo docs, so the first thing is there's the list of stuff I want to see. I need a declaration. So there's definitely going to be a declaration if it's a condo. More or less goes without saying. And then you would find a budget, should be a budget. More often than not, 99% of the time. Some condos are really, really casually run, in which case sometimes you won't even see that. I'm sure.
You bring up a good point. We should talk about that too. There's condos that are in, they'll have 500 units in a building, and then there's condos that will have 2.
Sure, and the analysis is different, between the two. Now, regardless of how big the condo is, the types of things I'm going to be asking for: a declaration, I want a budget, any rules and regulations, meeting minutes, and the 22.1 disclosure, which is the disclosures I referenced earlier. The larger the building, the bigger the budget, the more likely they are to have all of these. So you don't need, really, of those documents, the 2 that are probably HAFTAs as far as an association maintaining: the declaration, which will already be there, and then the budget.
Okay.
Those are really the 2 things that are HAFTAs. Now, meeting minutes are really have them, because that gives you a flavor of what is being talked about. the disclosure you get from the board / management company might not have all the stuff you want to see. It's supposed to have any money set aside for capital improvements. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they either don't put it there, don't realize what that is. They're supposed to tell you what projects are upcoming in the next 2 years that would require a large expenditure, perhaps a special assessment. Not always the case, but in the meeting minutes, it gives you a description of all the things they're discussing, and that's where you're going to find that, whatever, the little stuff or big stuff. Special assessments are going to get discussed. Special assessments rarely come out of the blue. They're usually discussed for 2, 3, 4, 10 board meetings. There's many reasons for that, not the least of which is that the board members who are going to ultimately approve the special assessment are taxing themselves. And they don't want to do that any more than their neighbor wants to get taxed in that way. So they'll be like, let's go back to the drawing board, get a different quote on replacing that roof so we can maybe spend less. These discussions, they go on, and the meeting minutes is where you can try to flesh that out. A larger building will almost certainly have meeting minutes. A smaller building, maybe not.
Because they probably won't even have a management company sometimes on the smaller ones, do they?
Often no. On a 3-unit building, the benefit you're going to get from having professional management isn't usually worth the expense. As long as there's one of the unit owners that's willing to step up and kind of do the legwork, collect the assessments, maintain the bank accounts, pay for stuff, and there usually is one that will reluctantly get involved or enthusiastically get involved, which can be good and bad depending.
Right.
If you get someone who's like, we really should spend $6,000 on landscaping out front, and the other 2 unit owners are like, maybe not.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
If the good Lord wants this grass green, he can water it. I'm sorry. I'm on that bad side of this stuff. I'm not a grass hater, but not there.
Hey, you can spend your own Saturday morning planting some flowers that you bought over at Home Depot. That's all good.
Joey, do you get the condo docs too? Absolutely, because we look at them. We make sure there's no language or numbers essentially that would make it unwarrantable. So if you're buying a primary residence, if more than 90% of the units are being rented out, then we're going to have a warrantability issue. If you're buying it as an investment property and more than 50% of the units are being rented out, we would have a warrantability issue.
What does that mean when it's an investment property, Joey? Sorry to interrupt.
You're buying it to rent it out. Rent it out. There's also single entity ownership saturation. So if it's up to a 10-unit building, anything more than two units being an investment property, you can run into a warrantability issue. If it's more than 20, then we're looking at a 20% concentration. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. So yeah, we get all the docs, we get the declarations, we get the budget, we get the questionnaire back. And we make sure that this is going to be something that Fannie or Freddie will buy based on the rules they set forth.
Now, when I bought my condo in Northbrook, and this was part of a moving transition thing in there, they did allow 2 units in our building to be rentals and stuff, but they made it pretty clear that it was not an FHA approved condo building. What does that mean? What does it take to be an FHA? And I assume that also means VA, approval building.
No, so it used to. So VA and FHA, if you went through the HUD approval process for FHA, VA would automatically grandfather in that approval, right?
Okay.
That's changed now. So VA and FHA, they have their own approval processes because they have different rules, right? So with FHA, you're going to be looking at things like insurance coverage, the master COI liability, making sure there's not more than 25% commercial space in the building, And this is another one, not more than 10% of the units can be owned by one investor or a single entity ownership situation. And there's a few of these. I'm not going to list them all.
Yeah.
They recently allowed for what's called a spot approval for FHA. So if FHA will not approve the project and less than 10% of the units are under an FHA loan, then you can still get an FHA spot approval and close on in the project using an FHA loan, even though the project isn't FHA approved. There's something similar with VA that literally I feel like no lenders use or even know about, because I swear to Jesus, I'm saving condo deals for VA loans every freaking week. If a condo is not VA approved and the HOA won't amend the language in their bylaws to get an approval, a veteran can literally sign a waiver request, send it to the VA reviews it and approves it. We've done, probably 100 of these in the last year and a half, where we have a unapproved project closing with a VA loan because the vet requested and the VA approved a waiver.
Joey, if somebody like a real estate agent or another veteran wants to learn more about buying the condos and stuff like that, and they want to talk to you personally, how do they get a hold of you? And I want to get back to this again, but how do they reach you, Joey?
My cell phone is 630-235-2405. The VA loan nerd. That's me.
Is that? But what was it? The TikTok? What was your? Or Instagram?
The mortgages are fun, but I'm thinking about switching it to the VA loan nerd just because
I like it.
Yeah, you know me.
I like being a nerd. Patrick, how about you? How do they get hold of you? And then we'll get back to Joey.
I just downloaded TikTok, and I'm gonna wait. I guess I was gonna follow Mortgages Are Fun because I hear that is
the best.
I heard that's
fun,
a really good
right?
TikTok account to follow, but maybe I'll wait to follow the VA loan nerd. Joe, keep me up to speed on that.
Yes, sir.
Reach me, call or text 773-632-8330.
Good. And my name is Charlie Belfontaine. We own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. And Joey was talking about, VA getting them approved when a lot of people don't understand the process of getting these things. And you were sharing with us some of the stuff and some of the problems that you had and the solutions. Can you go on again about that?
Yeah, I'll even get some specific on one that I closed on October 31st, on Halloween. The realtor on the transaction, also a veteran, knows me and mentioned to me a situation where the VA would not approve a project based on the language in the decks and bylaws, right? Essentially, they just had
Looks like we lost Joey there for a second. He just faded out on us a little bit. Patrick,
Whoops.
do you have any idea where it was going?
I would love to know all the stuff that I need to know, or that would be useful to know from the lending perspective. But then I would have to ignore all the law stuff because his stuff is so complicated. There are so many rules, for good reasons in a lot of respects. So I will let him instead of misleading people and thinking that, I'll just make something up or say something that sounds smart. But what I can get into. So while we're waiting for Joey to jump back in, when I get these condo docs, there's a lot.
Oh, Joey's back.
That
Joey,
was a terribly unfortunate time to break up. I don't know what that was. What'd you hear?
Actually, I don't remember, but you were talking about something recently that just happened on October 31st, and the real estate agent was a veteran, and they have a relationship with you.
So they reached out to me because they knew that I could do this because I've done it before. Long story short, the lender that the veteran was working with got a denial from the VA, and they went right back and said, we can't close this loan, blah, blah, blah. VA denied it. The realtor immediately reached out to me and said, hey, can you check this out and let me know if this is something that we could still close? I was like, so I looked at the denial letter, and all it said was leasing restrictions. And it even gives instructions on how to continue on the loan, even in the bottom of the denial, right? So I went and called the lender myself because I don't want to delay a process for anybody. I would rather help them close than take on the loan and
Wow.
know that they can close. So I called the lender. I gave her the process, or gave that person the process, and just told them, like, okay, I will give you verbatim what you need to send in this approval, have the veteran sign it, and send it forward to the VA, right?
That deserves a dinner.
Long,
That
Yeah.
deserves something.
Yes.
That's
Starbucks
awesome.
card,
But-
anything.
so she went back to, I don't know what she did with the information that I gave her, but I told her that I've done it several times. I even showed her a waiver that I had just recently gotten approved.
Nice.
And she came back to me a few hours later and said, hey, our underwriter said the VA won't guarantee the loan. This isn't a real thing, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, call me a liar. That's fine. I'll take over the loan. So I took over the loan. I got it on October 12th, the application in October 12th. Got the original denial from the VA, had the veteran sign the waiver, got all of his docs over to our underwriter. We were able to close on October 31st. So I had to assuage the fear of the selling agent because she also had never heard of a VA condo waiver. But yeah.
There's
Now
so
I have a
much
selling
out there
agent
that
that
people
believes
don't
me.
know. And this is where I value both of you, gentlemen. And thank you both for being part of this with me here. You two guys are smart, like there's no tomorrow. And you take on my attitude of just do the right thing. If you could help somebody, even if it's not going to be profitable, just do the right thing. And if it doesn't work, then jump in and take over. Joey, that's admirable. All I could do is thank you for helping another human being. And Patrick, you want to add? And
Yeah. I mean, having professionals who are able to come up with solutions on your team.
what's
I mean,
knowledge?
this is such just a perfect example of how important that is, because without that knowledge and information and expertise, that deal we're sitting today,
That's
and
a
that
dead
deal
deal.
doesn't happen.
Well-
And it didn't need to fall apart.
Without a doubt. And it goes back to just doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason and do it the right way, you know. And I just applaud stuff. Now, some of the questions that I get, and maybe you two can help out or help me give an answer to my clients, is when we find things that are wrong, sometimes we're going to look at the roof, all right, of a condo, and we find problems with the roof, all right, or the exterior. And many times that's going to be belonging to the association as opposed to belonging to the unit owner. Sometimes if it's a balcony, it belongs to the unit owner. How does one find out all those things? And if you're going to tell me it's in the condo docs and the bylaws and all that, then isn't there some law that says they have to give accurate, up-to-date bylaws by a certain time frame?
Well, there's not a law that necessarily says that, but in the contract it says something to the effect of, when I say the contract, I'm referring to the forms that we give to agents that we've made available for agents to use. They will typically say something to the effect of, within X number of days of acceptance, the seller shall make an effort to obtain the condo docs and disclosures.
Is that a blank that you fill in, or is it pre-written?
It's pre-written, and
Right.
I don't have every single line of
Fair
that
enough.
contract committed
Yeah.
to memory, but it's something like 5 or 10 business days after acceptance.
Okay.
The seller has to begin making an effort to obtain that stuff.
And when you say business days, what do you mean by that? That's another thing that I see my clients always confused on.
Yeah, sure. A business day, as defined in the CAR or the multi-board, is a Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., excluding federal holidays.
Cool. Sorry, we were just pointing out that we got
Ah,
5
no
minutes to
worries.
go. So go into more detail about how do I find out. So you said it's within 5 or 10 business days. That's what's normal, and that's where they're going to say what belongs to who or what and who's responsible.
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of just a general rule of thumb, and it is going to be in the condo docs. That's where you're going to dig into this stuff and really find out the right answer. But anything in the unit, that's going to be the unit owner. Anything that is outside the unit but is exclusively used by the unit owner, example, a balcony, would be a common element, but probably a limited common element. A limited common element is probably going to be a buyer, an owner expense, even if the association is managing a repair or a replacement. Anything that is used by everyone is going to be a common element, which is going to be for everyone to be or for the board rather, to be responsible for maintenance, replacement, etc. That is a very general and rough guideline to kind of use as a starting point to make a further determination, because we could spend another hour on that topic, and sometimes it's not even necessarily specifically laid out. This thing is a limited common element or a unit owner. There's only so much you can put in these documents before you start to really get into, going a little bit too far.
Whose job is it to get those condo docs?
So I've said this before, generally speaking, if this is going to be a buyer due diligence thing, so at the end of the day, it's the buyer's responsibility to make sure that they obtain these documents. Now, the seller in the contract is going to be tasked, or they're going to be obligated to provide said documents, but it's like any other bit of due diligence. The buyer needs to see to it that the seller lives up to that obligation. Because if you close and you didn't get the docs and disclosures, and you find out something you don't like later on, like a rental restriction or a pet restriction, ultimately that's going to fall in your lap as a buyer. So make sure that you are getting that stuff. Make sure your lawyer is on top of it. When I get condo docs, I'm not going to read everything line by line, because it's not going to serve the client. It's just going to be me reviewing them and attaching my set of values to the condo docs, and the client may have a completely different set of values. What I am looking for are rental restrictions. I'm looking for pet restrictions. These are things that, if the client finds out, could kill the deal. And if there's something specific, like if I find out my client's got a 95-pound husky, I want to find out, like, day one, if there's a 50-pound dog restriction, because that client's not buying that condo if that's the case. And I'm certainly not going to want a situation where the client's got to give up their dog because we weren't diligent in reviewing that stuff. And yeah, I just had one a couple months ago where there was a no animal restriction. My client had a service animal. And I said, look, we can't go any farther until the board approves the service animal, because if we close and my poor client's got to give up her dog, I'm not going to be able to live with myself.
No, it's going to be a very sad thing. But how do you know if somebody gives you the right documents or not? That's I guess, how can our listeners do? And I told you a story where somebody wanted short-term rentals, and they gave them condo docs that said it was short-term rentals, and then all of a sudden they got the documents that said no short-term rentals. It was different in different time frames.
Well, if it's a declaration, it's going to be a recorded document. You can find that document out there in the wild. It's going to be obtainable from the government website, and really that's our North Star as far as what is actually governing and restricting the condominium. That's where
I'm going to get that website again. I'm going to get that website again, and I want to put it up on the links. We are running out of time, and I do want to go through. It's always the case.
I told you I got a lot to say about this.
It's all good, and I love hearing it. I really do, and I want to do it again. But very quickly, give us your contact information again, Patrick and Joey. Get ready.
Call or text 773-632-8330. Smash that like button.
Thank you so much. Joey, please.
Joey Matthews, 630-235. Call 2405. Also subscribe.
There you go. It's like and alert and all the other stuff for this. These gentlemen are smart. Take advantage of them. My name is Charlie Belfontaine. I want to give a special thank you to Devin Tingle. He's our producer here. And you've been listening to WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. It's the Homebuyers Hour. My name is Charlie, and I am out.